I think you might. I mean, I got all the confidence in the world that you can sit there and go.
Like you text me every time you're here, you ask me questions, and give me the answers, so it should be okay.
I think you'll be fine.
County put out a RFP.
And I don't have any
So
concern.
Tony,
that
I
it's
have
passed.
questions. I did forward your questions to the applicant.
Oh, awesome.
She does have a license.
Okay.
And I think the other questions, she'll be prepared to answer. If I get answers sooner than the meeting, I'll let you know.
So I just wanted to make sure, I didn't want her to get caught,
Yeah,
blindsided.
yeah.
Back from Mardi Gras, huh?
Absolutely. Barely.
There was a large party that probably did not want to return over the night.
It's on my list of places to try one day.
I didn't want to come back, but it's too warm down there, there's like spiders and stuff, I like my winters. So as much as I want to be there, I don't want to be there all the time.
Have you been there for that before, or was that the
No,
first
that was
time?
my first time ever.
Yeah.
So,
I've never been down there.
My buddies went down there when we were in Pensacola, which makes sense because it's so close, and I should have gone.
yeah,
Because it was during Mardi Gras.
yeah, no, it was fun. I met some good chefs down there that want to get together and cook, so that's exciting.
Did you get some frog legs?
No,
I've only had frog legs once before, they're awesome.
I love Mardi Gras.
I'm not getting
You
well
can get,
down there.
so over at,
Burnham?
They did some
Uh,
bigger ones.
I've never had that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I think
And the one time I remember having them was, I remember it being like a chicken leg.
yeah.
I, they were,
Rich, do I need to put my phone number on here?
It says, yeah, you don't mind.
That's funny, yeah. Oh, we've got
Okay.
colors and everything. Oh, you've got colors.
Huh. I read it
And
through.
then you have all the PowerPoints, paper Tilly sent that one over this morning, so.
Okay. She's on form, they can have a meeting.
So I remember he saw, he was in Escanaba today, he was gonna be, supposed to originally travel back. And he's up there with his son for something. He said he was gonna call me, if he was gonna be able to get back early.
No.
Trimmed him up a little bit, shaved my beard down, now the weather's turning. Go to
That was perfect.
I stayed like 6 feet away from the
This is with my beard great.
You know what?
Well, it was a lot longer.
Yeah.
Started to look like a shaggy. Dan,
Are you gonna have all night?
I hope so.
Probably need a motion to put this on the agenda. Whether we discuss it at all? Because there was no official sponsorship for this. There's no money for this. The chamber's not part of this. They already put it out 6 weeks ago. They haven't collected any money. They're not getting $30,000 from the chamber. So why do we want to put it out? We don't have a city commissioner or a city manager. I'll make the motion so we can discuss it. Are we ready?
Now, it's 7 o'clock. Good evening, welcome to the regular meeting of the Buchanan City Commission. It's Monday, February 27th, 2023, 7 p.m. Will you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Dennison,
Here.
Whedon,
Here.
Bianski,
Yep.
Money, Swam.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I would accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll support.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. I'd like to.
We have a motion and a second.
We can have discussion though.
Discussion.
What would you like to discuss, Dan? You want to
Thrill
discuss
on the
it?
Hill. I'd like to put it under new business. I mean, there's been no formal improvement. There's no money. Chamber's not working with us. We don't have a city manager. So I think this city commission needs to make a decision so that we can stop it formally before we upset more sponsors and make a decision about next year.
I think we're working through the budget piece right now, and maybe at the next meeting, the staff could kind of present where they stand with everything, and we'll have a clear idea on our financials at that point. I'd be fine with talking about it at the next meeting.
I wouldn't mind not having it on this agenda only because we already have 3 presentations and a lot to get through. Are you good with the next meeting?
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Just wanted to bring it up so that we got it on the agenda next time.
Roll call, please.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yep.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison.
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comment on agenda items only. If you'd like to make a public comment, please make your way to the podium and state your name for the minutes. Anyone wishing to make a public comment?
Norma Ferris. Public hearing for the sale of Ross Sanders. Okay, we are finally getting close to putting it on the market. We're not just chattering over past stuff. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Okay, seeing none, let's move to the consent agenda. Accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Sean will make said motion.
Thank you. Is there support?
Second.
Thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Bianski,
Yep.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Carries.
Thank you. Now moving on to scheduled matters from the floor. Excuse me, we have proposals for the city manager recruitment services. Were you starting with the,
Yeah, so you're actually gonna start with Art Davis. He is actually, if you can see him, I'm gonna turn them, Art, can you hear us?
I can.
Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. Let me just
All right.
shut this off.
Cool.
That's perfect.
This is fake silly.
You still there?
Yep,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah,
You
big
are good to go, Art.
the floor
Can
is
you hear
yours.
me?
I can.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Remind me, Cal, how much time I have.
I think we discussed 15-minute presentation and then 15 minutes for questions.
That's right. Thank you.
Mhm.
And honorable mayor and members of the city commission, thank you. I'm with Baker Tilly, public sector executive recruitment. We, as you can see by the presentation materials that you have, we have about 5 full-time consultants on our local government executive recruitment team. And we're all former local government professionals, either city managers, assistant county managers, HR directors, and we have one that's a former school superintendent. I was a city manager in a town of about 100,000 called Lee Summit, Missouri, for about 6 years, and before that, I was an assistant city manager in another community for about 6 years, and before that, I worked for the city of Dallas for several years, Dallas, Texas. And I've been doing executive recruitment for my firm for about 10 years before I was recruited to the firm I'm currently with. And I've been with our firm for about 8 years now, and have done hundreds of recruitments through the years. And so very experienced in city manager. We only focus in local government executive level positions. Occasionally we'll do a state agency or a nonprofit, but almost entirely local government. Some recent Michigan recruitments I've been involved in. I did the Grand Rapids city manager recruitment back in 2018, the deputy city manager recruitment in 2021, about a year and a half ago, and then also the Grand Rapids fire chief recruitment in 2016. Allegheny County, I did a chief financial officer for the county, I believe it was 2019, and then I'm currently working with the city of Wyoming, Michigan on their city manager recruitment. Very excited and honored that you would allow us to compete for this work. We understand, all having been local government officials, we understand the pressures that elected officials are under, as well as the staff and the management team for your community. And we're gonna help you develop a profile and talk about and identify key attributes, characteristics, leadership skills, experience that you're looking for, and develop a profile and marketing brochure that ensures we put your best foot forward in identifying the kinds of things you're looking for in a new manager. And I personally always encourage, if there's any internal interest from potential candidates in your employee base, I always encourage that. It's number one, they may not be ready in some respects, but it's a great learning experience for them, and it also gives you all an opportunity to learn more about them that you may not know through some of the process of getting more information and taking them through that process. So I'm always an encourager of that. We do market and advertise nationally, but we also try to focus regionally, and not just the state of Michigan, but some of the surrounding states. There's always exceptions to the rule, but it just seems like, you know, if somebody's coming from the West Coast or from the South, it's a little bit of a culture difference sometimes between regions of the country, and it doesn't, there aren't exceptions, and you know, sometimes there's community ties an individual has, or they have siblings or parents that are aging. There's a reason they want to get back to Michigan, but many times there are people locally or within the state that are just as interested, and we try to dig deep and identify both through marketing and LinkedIn, but also I personally enjoy pursuing through the professional organizations, the Michigan, City and County Management Association, for example, going in and looking at who's involved in professional development activities on the committees for those organizations, on the board of directors, and I reach out and email those individuals and try to find either people that might be interested or people that may know someone else that might be a good fit. Because ideally you find someone that is happily employed somewhere and just has not been made aware of this opportunity, this great opportunity in your community. And so, obviously we get the common recurring applicants that apply, and if there's individuals that apply for every job for the last 7 or 8 years, and we've got several that do that, you know, that's a red flag to me if they're moving jobs and constantly applying, because most communities, and especially, you know, doing a little research on your community, it's a community that high quality services, great quality of life, and it's somebody that you want to stay, you know, anywhere from 4 to 10 years and make a real commitment out of their stay. So we try to make sure it's a good fit. When we narrow down, we do have a triple guarantee with our recruitment. We're going to stick with you until you find the right person. So let's say we go through the initial process and you have 1 or 2 candidates, which happens more often than it used to these days. They'll have they'll withdraw through the process, you know, a week or 2 before the interviews, or they decide it's not a good fit, or their family, their kids. I had one a couple of days ago call me, and they were a finalist, and their high school kids threw a fit, didn't want to move, and they withdrew. And so sometimes you get that. And so we're going to stick with you, and if you don't find the right person the first go around, we're going to stick with you at no additional charge and until you do find the right person. We've also got a 1-year guarantee. They stay with you regardless of and regardless of whether you terminate or ask them to leave or they up and leave. Doesn't happen very often, but if they do, then we're going to come in and at no additional professional fee, we're going to come in and help you fill that position for just the cost related to advertisements and the direct costs, things like that. And then the third part of that triple guarantee is we're not going to come back and recruit your person we placed at a later date, which would be unethical in my mind, but I guess it wouldn't make for a snazzy saying of having a triple guarantee if you had it. So that's what we do with our guarantee. We also are committed to providing a diverse group of candidates at the semifinalist level. So once we finish up the brochure and the marketing, we post the ad, we start our outreach with all of our lists and individuals where we start pursuing. Excuse me. I lost my train of thought there. The diverse. We are committed to bringing you a diverse pool of candidates, and that's ethnically, that's gender, and having as much diversity as we're able to generate, and then it's up to you to, once we get to that semifinalist list of 8, 10, or 12 candidates, to then narrow that group down to a group of 3 or 4 or 5 finalists to bring in for on-site interviews. As a part of reviewing a semifinalist group of the highest qualified candidates, we also do a video interview where we'll ask 3 or 4 or 5 questions. They get 30 seconds to read it on a video link, and then they have to respond within 3 minutes. They get one shot. It's a one-shot deal. And so what it does is gives you an indication of their leadership presence, their clarity of thought, their ability to articulate pretty basic issues and responses to questions they should know about. And it just is another tool. It's not what you solely make a decision on, but it's another tool in which to help for you to narrow down that group of candidates. We also send them a candidate questionnaire, and we ask them to respond to a series of questions that kind of makes, it provides a more apples to apples comparison, because everybody puts together their resume or their CV differently. And so we try to get some of the basics of their experience, the exact dates that they started in employment, the exact dates that they departed, because not everybody puts that on their resume. And then we call and have a phone interview, a phone interview with them, just to clarify any uncertainties in that information. And then we provide you with all of that background materials, and we also do a social media scan before the initial semifinalist review, so that we do a Nexus search, which kind of scans all of the publications online, and any news articles or even blog sites. And when things come up, doesn't mean they're accurate, but we will start trying to develop some of the background on the candidates. So if there's been anything controversial, we will know about it from them having been in a public position. And then we also ask them a due diligence questionnaire, where we ask them, is there anything controversial in your background? And they have to respond in writing and let us know, ultimately letting you know, because we share this with you, all of their materials. And if we are able to find other things that they haven't volunteered to us, that's a red flag. And that's more of the vetting that we try to do with these candidates before you're in a position of narrowing them down for interviews. So once you decide to narrow down, and I would be the project lead on this, I would help you all and answer questions, but it's your decision to make. You narrow it down, and then we do the background checks, and we do a series of criminal, civil, driving record, sexual predator list. We would do FEDA check. We would do reference checks with both current or former supervisors, as well as colleagues and subordinates. And then we do academic verification checks, and then we would help prepare some draft interview questions. And we also have a psychological assessment that focuses on behavioral strengths and leadership skills. And we would ask them to respond to this. It's something that it's based off the DISC model, which you're mostly probably aware of it's a summary on whether it looks at the dominance traits, the conscientious traits, steadiness, influence, and kind of ask a series of questions about the 25 behaviors that we're looking at, these leadership behaviors. And we provide a report to you before the interviews of these findings, and then it can help put together, help us develop more focused and targeted questions during the interview process as a result of this. And so there is a little bit of that in the background, the presentation materials, and there was, I think, maybe some longer summaries in the proposal that should have been part of that that you've been able to review. So we helped develop the interview questions, just suggested questions, and then you all would tweak them the way you like, and then we would help develop the schedule, to kind of give you some parameters of best practices for tours, and we would assist in coordinating or working with your point person on staff to develop any assessment panels, or if you wanted to just do it as a city commission on your own. However you want to do it, we're going to help you put that all together. And we'll also help you in any negotiation or helping to facilitate discussions with number one or the top two candidates for kind of sealing the deal for hiring your next city manager. We're aware, because of all the work we do nationwide, what some of the common practices are for currently with employment agreements, and we're gonna do whatever we can do to assist you in that effort. So I think that, in a nutshell, kind of wraps up the whole proposal process, and usually takes 4 months from beginning till end. Now, sometimes candidates have to give 30 days or 60 days notice by contract or by agreement, and so that can be sometimes something, if they're in good stead with their current employer, they can get out of that. Sometimes they'll be able to negotiate that down, or sometimes they've gotta stay for that full time as they've committed to by contract. That's just some of the nuances and why sometimes the timeline's a little uncertain for the exact time for filling a important position like this. So I guess with that, I'll just wrap up, and again, thank you all for the opportunity, and like to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to know how many of the employees that you've recruited are still working in the jobs that you recruited them in. Did you hear me?
But I heard part of it.
How many of the people that you've recruited are still working at the jobs that you recruited them in? What's your percentage of turnover?
Well, you're saying related to city managers or department directors or?
Really doesn't really matter. I mean, what's your percentage of recruitment staying time?
Typically, it's our recruitments are 4 to 5 years is how long they last. There's a number of recruitments. The fire chief in Grand Rapids that I helped recruit back in 2016, he just announced his retirement this year, and so they're filling the position currently. For that position, so that's about 6 to 7 years. He stayed there about 6 to 7 years, but he had already retired from another position after 20 years in another department. So some of it depends on at what point in their career they are, where they would retire a second time, if they're still fairly youthful after they've retired the first time. Some, have stayed, are still in place that we've put into place. But as you know, there's a massive number of retirements going on nationwide, and it's a challenge, quite honestly, in the hiring business right now, to get a number of strong, highly qualified candidates that are experienced. And to answer your question, I'd say 4 to 5 years is typically the length that people stay at a minimum.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple for you, Art.
Sure.
So, what, in your thoughts, you've done some research on Buchanan, what makes us competitive as a community, and what are we going to struggle with?
Well, you've got a beautiful community with a beautiful downtown that's been preserved, with a lot of natural elements with the river, and you're close to the lake, and you're also close to major university with Notre Dame, and so you've got I haven't flown into that airport before, but it looks like a pretty easy to get in and out of airport that's really close. So those things would be attractive. My impression is you've had stable governance in the community, I didn't see a lot of controversy. That there's always issues of disagreement, and I haven't gone very far back in trying to seek anything out. But overall, my impression is it's a very high quality community that people are proud of, and so from that respect, it would be a very desirable community to move to and make a career out of it and bring your family. The more the challenging part would be that, you know, there weren't a lot of hotels in town. There weren't a lot of, that I could find. And maybe there's other things like bed and breakfast and those kinds of things. But, you know, there was some, you know, you had areas of strength, and then you had areas that it would be, you know, it's not something that's a destination driver for a lot of visitors and generating additional growth. The other thing is you're quite a ways away from a major metro area, and a lot of two-career families. Now I think you're close enough to a fairly large university town that, you know, it's a close enough drive that might make up for a lot of what people look for in a major metro area, which is cultural events or major sporting events, or, you know, when you have a family, either with kids or you like to be close to a lot of things to do. I think you may be close enough to a major university town that that may not be a challenge, but I know there's a lot of communities that if they're 3 or 4 hours away from a major metro area, it's very difficult to get families or spouses to relocate, uproot and relocate when you're that far away from, you know, major shopping and cultural events and those kinds of things. So that would be more of the challenge. Although I think you've got enough to do around with, you know, a lot of high quality, you're not that far from Chicago either. So you're actually within pretty close proximities to some major metros, so I'm not sure that would impact you. Also a big issue is how competitive is your pay? And if you don't have a competitive pay scale for this position, then it's kind of hard to attract the most experienced or some high flyers that are looking to better themselves professionally. You know, if they're an assistant in a larger community or a deputy, or they're in a metro area, just by virtue of being in a metro area, pay scales are considerably more competitive. And so sometimes it's difficult to, you know, even though I had to do it, and I've convinced other candidates that it's worth taking, you know, a step back to take 2 or 3 steps forward in the future. But I mean, it's a conversation that has to be had. And so the most competitive you can make your pay range, your compensation range, I think the better opportunity you're going to have with a higher number of quality candidates looking at the position. Doesn't mean you have to pay that top range. It gets more looks and it gets more interest. And if you do get a superstar candidate that, let's say they're right at the top of the range that you're looking for, you know, if you've got somebody that is going to either generate hundreds of thousands of dollars or save you a large amount of money because of their innovation and entrepreneurial spirit and experience, you know, it's not worth quibbling over $10,000, I think, on a salary to get somebody that's going to have, you know, 20 times that impact if they stayed with you for another 5 or 6 or 7 years. So to me, I think it's good to be flexible as a hiring authority, as a governing body, when you're looking at candidates and not get too locked in on you know, you've got to provide a little bit of a salary range, because if somebody's making $50,000 more than you're willing to at your highest level, then that's not going to be a good fit. But if they're making, you know, right at your top of the range or a little bit more, then to me, you want them in the door. And so it's nice to if your recruiter can kind of provide, well, they might have a little flexibility if we find somebody that's really, really, a potentially great candidate to kind of keep them in the door. And then in the end, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But, I mean, to me, you want to try to, attract those really strong candidates. So sorry about the long answer.
Thank you.
Any questions, Mark? I don't have any questions either. All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Art.
Okay, hey, I really appreciate the time and best of luck in your search.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Is Joyce Parker next?
He was just driving down.
Joyce Parker?
Yep.
Okay.
You're up.
You have the floor, Ms. Parker.
MML,
Yes.
great.
Good evening to everyone, to the mayor and members of the city council and to the public. My name is Joyce Parker. I'm one of the executive recruiters with the Michigan Municipal League. And I'm here this evening just to present information related to their search process and to try to answer any questions that you might have as well. I did ask Kayla to provide a copy of my outline to you, which is pretty similar to the presentation. It's just a little bit more brief. Okay.
Very good.
So basically, I've been working with the Michigan Municipal League since 2001. And since working with MML as part of the search process, I've actually handled more than 75 searches on their behalf over that time frame. I also have worked in the past as a city manager, as Art had mentioned. One of the things that MML really pride themselves on is having recruiters that actually have experience in the city management profession. So I've worked in city management for more than 20 years. I've also worked in other areas of government at the state level, and I've participated in government at the county level as well. In addition, as far as searches in the surrounding area, I've conducted searches for the city of St. Joe, as well as Benton Harbor, Battle Creek, and I've also done some work with the city of Kalamazoo. The second item I wanted to touch on is why the Michigan Municipal League, why the league? There's a number of reasons why MML truly should be considered for this search process. They're nonpartisan. MML provides executive search services exclusively to Michigan communities since 1998. Their focus is in Michigan. All recruiters are former public administrators. There are 4 recruiters. They've worked throughout the state of Michigan. The league provides comprehensive services to Michigan communities and advocates for communities. So the services provided by MML basically go beyond just the search process. They provide services to their membership, and they do not leave once the search is completed. MML has extensive knowledge of Michigan laws, such as the Open Meetings Act, the Freedom of Information Act, and several other ones. And those services related to the legal side of things are available to our members through the attorneys, through MML. We also have comprehensive recruitment and promotion resources. So primarily when positions are advertised, we have a relationship with the International City Managers Association. We also have our own internal classified ads where all of the communities throughout Michigan access that information. We have participation with social media, other support associations. So for example, if we're looking at a search related to a police chief, we're affiliated with all of those associations. We're affiliated with the Michigan Municipal Executives, and we provide staff services to that particular group. And we do direct recruitment based on individuals that we may know that might be a good fit for the position here in Buchanan. And then we also have email blasts through a listserv based on a specific membership that might be a good fit again for the position. In terms of a guarantee, the Michigan Municipal League does have a guarantee where if for some reason the candidate does not stay with the city past 1 year, MML will redo the search. Or if for some reason we do not get viable candidates, we will redo the search on your behalf. I also would like to talk about the process overview as far as how we proceed with the search, which is very similar to what Art does through his particular firm. So primarily we do 3 different profiles as part of the process. We do one related to the candidate where we meet with the commissioners and any staff or others that you think should be part of the process to determine the requirements for the position. And based on the information that you provide, we put together a draft profile for your review and approval. In addition to that, we do a community profile based on information, working with members of your staff, doing research related to the community, and we put together a brochure that is part of the information that is provided to candidates. We also link our information to your website so that your residents and others can access the information either way. And then we do an organizational profile to get a better sense of your organization, some of its challenges, strengths, any questions that might come up as part of the process so that we're able to articulate that information to candidates. Thirdly, in the screening and shortlist phase, the advertisement and marketing phase, once we put together the profiles and they're approved by you, we then proceed with advertising the position generally for 30 days unless there's a reason to go beyond 30 days. An example of that is if we do not have a good number of candidates to consider for the position, we'll get back with the city to request that you consider perhaps an extension. But generally it's about 30 days. Once we receive the resumes, as far as the screening and shortlist phase, generally the recruiter, and in this particular case the recruiter would be me, would review the information in detail based on the criteria that you established for the position to determine who your stronger candidates are. And then once we do that type of review, we actually interview all of the candidates that are eligible for the position to get more detailed information that will help us determine whether the candidate is a good fit for the position or not. We check references, we ask questions that will give us some insight in terms of any issues that a candidate might have had in other positions. So once the screening and the shortlist phase is completed, a meeting is scheduled with the city to discuss the outcome of the screening and to get some direction in terms of who you would like to see as finalists for the position. And then secondly, how to proceed with the interview process, whether, for example, you might want to have a meet and greet or a reception, or if there's other individuals that you would like to see as part of the process. So we'll have that discussion with the city. And then at that stage, once you determine who your finalists will be for interviews, part of the discussion is also to identify a date for interviews, and again, any other areas that's specific to your process. We customize the interview process to meet your needs. And then the final phase, once you determine your finalists for the position, MML is available to assist with a conditional offer to the candidate. We have templates related to contracts. If you need additional material, we have that information available. We also conduct an extensive background check, which is part of the costs associated with the search. And if you, for example, want us to do an extensive reference check beyond what we've done at that point in the process, we are certainly open to doing that as well. And then we take care of all closeout activities related to the search. You know, in terms of optional services, if, for example, there's a meet and greet where you would like to have MML take leadership in getting it organized, there's a fee for that, but it is optional with this particular cost that's associated with the search. And then we can also do a third profiling session. For example, if you want us to meet with stakeholders in the community, we can do that as well. In terms of project timing and fees, the process generally takes about 120 days. Depending on any extensions, it might go beyond that. But part of the process early with the search is to put together a tentative schedule that I can provide to everyone, and then we can stay on task with that schedule. And then the other final comment on fees, there's certainly 3 levels that MML has. Actually, they have more than 3 levels, but for members, there's 3 levels. And what has been recommended in this case is the mid-range in order to get the search completed. So at this point, I'd like to maybe answer any questions that you might have.
Alrighty. Is the fee basis, is that all inclusive?
Yes.
Everything's inclusive. I mean, everything extra is basically anything extra that we want, like the meet and greet.
Right.
But the basic fee is all inclusive.
But the fee is all inclusive. The only thing that probably is not included might be mileage, which would be an expense for travel for the facilitator. But everything else is included.
I got another one.
And that might be the difference too with MML and perhaps other search firms, because they may have other fees for certain things that are included here, like background check is included as part of the search cost.
Does your advertising do like the tri-state area, or is it just?
The advertising actually is based on what the city would like. Generally, we advertise nationwide, but as part of getting the search process underway, as mentioned earlier, we customize the search based on your needs. So if you want us to focus, for example, just in Michigan, we can focus in Michigan. But if you want a national search, which most communities do, we actually conduct national searches. It really depends on what you want.
Does that cost more then?
No,
So
same
that,
price.
okay.
How often do you place national candidates in Michigan?
Fairly often, and it really depends on the type of search. You know, for example, right now I know we have a couple of searches going on with police chiefs. And generally, communities will interview candidates outside of the state of Michigan as well as those internally, and often select those that are not in Michigan. It depends.
Are there any pros or cons to spreading a wider net and looking outside of Michigan, in your view?
What was the question?
Are there any pros or cons to doing that national search compared to just looking in Michigan? Other than obviously having more candidates, probably.
Right. I think that there's certainly benefit in doing the national search so that you have the benefit of the information and you can evaluate your candidates in Michigan versus outside of Michigan. I think part of it depends too on the organization and whether you're open to change, because often with external candidates outside of Michigan, they're going to bring certain ideas to you that may not necessarily happen if it's a Michigan candidate. Like, for example, state laws are different, so as a result, some of the recommendations that you might get from an out-of-state candidate might be different.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What's going to be the most, or the biggest obstacle for the MML when filling our position?
Well, what I have found, as mentioned earlier with IART, is that right now with the retirements in the profession, it is really challenging to recruit really good talent with filling positions. So I think the salary is important, benefits are important, the relationships I think are key with the commissioners, with the staff, in the community, and generally with candidates, they do their own homework and their own research to make that determination as far as whether it's a community where they can be a part of the community and be here for a while and work well with everyone. So I think that's a consideration as well. I do think that some of your strengths really is with the community itself, and the community really seems to be engaged here in Buchanan. You got a nice downtown, but I think there's opportunities to challenge individuals that are coming into the community to make a difference and to be progressive. So I think, overall, the community is a good community. The other thing that we do is kind of a comparable review related to salary and benefits for Buchanan, your surrounding communities, how you fit overall in order to position you for being competitive. And so that information will be provided. If your salary level appears to be too low, you'll be able to see where everybody else is at. If it's too high, you'll know that too.
I'm sure we won't be too high. Joyce, I want to, what do you base, and I don't, when I ask this, use the words in a broad context. What are the minimal requirements? Because it's always seems like, how do you get the experience? And somebody that has no experience in government, but they have outlandish leadership experience, do you screen it that way, or do you screen it by college degrees, or?
Well, when we meet to do the profiling, we'll talk about like some of the key things that are important to you in your next city manager. Certainly with the previous manager, you can certainly look at where that person was at, but also what you would like to see with your next manager. So we'll talk about the educational component as far as whether they should have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, whether it's desired or required, how many years of experience you're looking for your next manager. Then we'll talk about attributes, the things that are not as tangible, but we can certainly get a sense of the type of candidates you have based on the interview and the process that I do in order to put together your short list. So, for example, if you're looking for someone that is very visible in their community, part of what I would do is to gauge whether the candidates actually can demonstrate that they've done things in that area. What have they done to be visible in communities? If you want someone, for example, that have a strong financial background, then part of what I'll do is spend quite a bit of time with the candidate to determine to what extent do they have with the financial background, not necessarily just understanding your budget, but did they put your budget together in the community where they're working? Did they monitor the budget? Do they amend the budget? Have they done anything as a result of problems with meeting budgetary needs? So I get into the detail, kind of like into the weeds.
Thank you.
Any questions? That was a good question, Dan.
Done.
Joyce, thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank you very much, Joyce.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Joyce.
meeting all of
You too. Thank you.
I do have one more question, just a quick 30-second answer, I'm sorry. Have we ever done MML, has Buchanan ever hired MML for any searches at all?
You know, I don't know on that because MML has done, I can't begin to tell you, probably 300-400 or more searches.
Okay,
But I could go back and check for you.
well, it was just a curiosity, a
Yeah.
trivia question.
Yeah, I suspect they've done something in Buchanan. I don't know about the searches.
Yeah, I don't remember if, okay, thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then our final one is Frank Walsh, President of Walsh Municipal Services.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me. I'm Frank Walsh. I'm with Walsh Municipal Services. Our firm's been around for about 27 years, and our home is Berrien County. This is where we started back in '97. Our first search was in Stevensville, and we also have worked here in Buchanan, and we worked in Bangor, and a few other communities down here in Southwest Michigan. Since that time, we recruited over 100 recruitments in Michigan. I think last year we did 24 recruitments. I'm not going to stand up here and go through the whole proposal with you and walk through and read it to you. You've had it. I know you've had a chance to look at it. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about. I know you've got other stuff to do this evening. So, but what we do is we start with like any other firm. We create the community profile, but to help get things started, I've already spent quite a bit of time on that. So I have a 5 or 6 page recruitment here. One of the pages is, the thrill on the hill. We have to put things in here that separate Buchanan from other communities. You can't just do the cookie cutter approach. And then you get into, we focus on what kind of characteristics are we looking for. Sometimes that's a complete waste of time because everyone puts in there, we want someone who's visible in the community. We want somebody, well, no, we don't want somebody who's visible. We want somebody who's done it. We want somebody who's in financial management. You can set all that aside. City management is not as difficult as I've been doing it for 30-some years. It's not as difficult as what people make it to be. We want to focus on candidates who, number one, know how to treat people. You have to be able to treat people. You have to be personable to do well at this position. And number two, you have to have some leadership skills and know how to complete a project. If you know how to do those 3 things, you can be a great city manager. Master's degree, we gotta have a master's degree, 5 years experience, this, that, the other thing. You gotta sell the community first. You can put together all the characteristics you want and spend a lot of time on that. First thing we gotta do is get people locked in to wanna come to Buchanan. That's the first thing. So we put the profile together, we publicize for 4 weeks. And we do that through a number of sources. A lot of it's through social media, and then of course the MML site. For this particular search, I would not do the national ICMA. I don't think it's appropriate for this search. I think it's a waste of money. I'm just a candid person. I'm gonna tell you, not sugarcoating anything, this is what I believe. I don't believe you go out and spend money. I'll tell you why. One of the things that's changed in the last 18 months as far as recruitment is the economy. 90%, over 90% of the Michigan searches in the last 2 years have resulted in a Michigan candidate, okay? People aren't moving. Why? Well, one of the things we face in a community like this, 4,000 people, salary, whatever you offer, we could talk about that. We're not, let's face it, we're not going to attract, people can talk about all they want about heavy hitters from Mississippi or LA or Atlanta. Not likely to happen. What's likely to happen is to draw a circle around Buchanan of about 45 to 60 miles, and that's probably a heavy recruiting area for us. Why? The economy's changed everything. I'm struggling to get candidates to move 5 counties away. Why? Right now, because a person who's going to come to Buchanan's probably up and coming in the field, right? Well, they have a mortgage. They're paying 2.2% on their mortgage. They're going to move here for $15,000 more. Big raise, right? Now they're paying 7.5% interest because they just bought a house. They're paying $600 or $700 more for their monthly payment. There goes the raise. It's really difficult. It's changed recruitment, and recruiters have to pay attention to that when you go out and recruit. So we do a 4-week recruitment period. At the end of that, we start to vet candidates. We start to vet who really, I don't have to try to think about Buchanan or talk about Buchanan. I've been to Buchanan. I know Buchanan. I've been to the Thrill on the Hill. I've reffed many, many basketball games over here in the Bucks gym. I know the community. Not as well as all of you, but I know the community. So I'm going to be able to help sell the community, because I know it, to the candidates who might be interested in coming here. It's not going to be an easy recruitment. They're difficult, and you've really got to cultivate the candidates. So we go to all the social media platforms. We go to the MML site, Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, I can go through them all, Facebook. We do all of that. And our network in Michigan is extensive. I mean, not only am I going to help you with who you may want, I'm going to help you with who we probably don't want, just as important. Because I know most everyone in Michigan that will be applying. I would probably know everyone in Michigan who will be applying for this position. After the 4-week recruitment, we bring together the top 5 or 6 candidates. They'll request confidentiality, which is allowed under the Michigan Open Meetings Act, the FOIA. And we would meet in closed session. We'd go over those applicants, and at that time you would choose who you want to interview based on a set of criteria that's important to all of you. From there, we would do reference checks. There's one other thing that we do that's really important that no other firm that I know of does. And that's we do a 1-page candidate questionnaire. Just 1 page, easy read. And you get it along with the resumes, redacted resumes, no personal information. And that questionnaire talks about your proudest accomplishments, your strengths and weaknesses, blah, blah, blah. I want to see the answer to question 5 on this questionnaire. And that is there anything that you want to share with us now that will come out later that could be embarrassing to the city of Buchanan if they were to hire you? That covers the city. Because you'd be surprised about what we don't know about the candidates, that the candidate you choose, it comes out later, and you wish you would have known about it. It covers the city because you asked the question. If they say no during the recruitment period and something comes out, you're covered. It's a really important piece of the recruitment. Whatever firm you go with, I'd make sure you include something like that, because I've seen communities get burned by that. So after we select the candidates, we do some strong reference checks on all the candidates. That includes not just calling the people on the list, but one of the important things to do is do a social media review. What are they like when people aren't looking, when you aren't looking? What have they done in the last couple of months social media-wise? It tells you a lot about the candidates. So from there, we prepare interview questions, and we help you prepare for the interviews. We come to attend the interviews, and then we go to contract negotiations. So from profile to interviews and questions, that's the entire process without belaboring it for another half hour. That's what we do and what we have done. And if you talk to our clients across Michigan, I think you'll find some very satisfactory results. So that's what we do, and we consider Berrien County our home. That's where we started, and now we're adjacent to Michigan State University in Okemos. That's all I have. I prefer a conversation over a long presentation.
He's gonna go first, yeah.
Have you worked for the city of Buchanan before?
You mean as a recruiter or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Yes.
Okay. How?
20 years ago, roughly, we did the recruitment for Mike Hughes, when Mike was the city manager here for 4 or 5 years, before he went back to his hometown of Sturgis. By the way, he just retired last month. We did that recruitment 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yep. That was back when we were
I
just.
think Mike Hughes was fairly well liked in the city, but I don't remember, because I wasn't here.
That's the resounding statement
think-
I've heard.
That
Mike-
was,
yeah.
I think he was.
I
Very
can't
much so.
take any
Head
credit.
shakes, head shakes, yeah, I think based on the reaction of the people who've been here over 20 years, that's a pretty
Yeah.
good sentiment.
Yeah, I take no credit for the success, because actually it's the elected officials that made, we had 4 other candidates besides Mike. They're the ones who picked Mike. We can only bring the candidates forward. It's up to you on who you choose, but Mike's a solid guy, and I hated to see him leave the field, but he just left the field 2 weeks ago. He left city management. As a number of people are, it's getting harder and harder to find candidates.
Well, he went over there as a city manager, didn't he?
I think, yeah, he was assistant there, and then came over here as the manager, and then went back as the manager, I believe.
I believe so too.
Yeah.
Why are people leaving the profession?
That was my question.
Because the salary levels, you can make a lot more money in the private sector. And the relationship between elected officials and administrators is getting more and more tense as we go. So those are a couple of reasons. And plus, with the recession that happened in '08, a lot of communities, the first thing they did was cut out the assistant position. And so we just don't have the number of people in the field. You know, that's already 15 years ago, so we just don't have the number of people in the field that we had. But part of what we do as a recruiting firm is, I'm telling you, it is likely that the person that you end up choosing here will not have been a city manager or an assistant. You don't have to be a city manager to be a great city manager. You have to be personable and a leader and get projects done. That's the definition of a great manager. By the way, I see Tim Lynch is on the agenda later. Excellent choice for an interim. I worked with Tim for 15 years when he was heading the St. Joe Benton Harbor plant.
Do you think a lot of municipalities make that mistake of focusing on experience in this field simply because that's what in the private world we do for everything? So they inadvertently apply that same logic to a city manager, that they have to have extensive knowledge in city finance, extensive knowledge in DPW functionality, like they just pigeonhole themselves into a world that is really trying to produce one person, because it just doesn't exist.
Best thing I tell elected officials is, on a good day, I was a C student in high school, probably a B student in high school or graduate school.
Right.
I try to treat people well and respectful, like I was raised by my parents.
Right.
And I know how to get projects done. I've been doing this for 32 years and have changed jobs once. So it boils down to, I don't know anything about police work. I don't need to. I don't know anything about, we responded to the our whole township responded to the MSU tragedy 2 weeks ago tonight at about this time. I don't know anything about that stuff. But I do know how to treat the police chief and the fire chief and build a good team, and that's what leadership's all about. And that's what makes a good city manager. I'm really not, I'm by far in Meridian Township, I'm by far the smartest person in the room. In fact, I'm probably looking up pretty far. But it's all about respect and how you treat people. It goes a long way.
Agreed.
So my question was related to the up and coming statement, and so these people that you're placing in these roles, are they leaders within a city typically already, but just much different positions, maybe not management at that time, or are they completely outside industry like an engineer or something else? Where are these people coming from?
A true variety.
Yeah.
A true variety. You know, I look at somebody like this, say somebody, I'll pick a position like Michigan Works, I think it has a new name now. But take a position, a place like that, and someone's done really well there, and they've been promoted once or twice, and they're great. They run a couple of different departments within that organization, and they're really well liked and all that. That person can translate to a city manager well. They don't have to know how to run an election. That's what the clerk's job. They just need to be able to lead the team that you have. And but they can't just have a job. They have to be, a job that's non-municipal. They have to be very successful at the job that they have, whatever field that is. I'll give you an example. Durand over by Lansing interviewed nearly 2 years ago, next month. And there were some government people, and there was this guy named Cameron Horvath, most recruiters would never put him on the list. I liked him from day one. Cameron's a great personality. Go back to his high school. He was captain of every sports team. Why? Because he's a leader, okay? Undergrad, I don't think he was the only one in the field without a master's degree. Oh boy. So I told the city council, I said, you're gonna like this guy. But he's a landscape architect. He's never been in government. His job was to go around and work for developers and go to the cities and townships and get zoning and planning and all those approvals through the planning commission. So he has to be a great presenter, has to know how to really move, right? Unanimous vote for Cameron. He went up against 3 people who had government experience. You gotta look under, right now, as tough as it is recruiting, you have to look under every rock and every stone you can.
So with the resources you have, if you put somebody in a position that doesn't have that background, would you be able to get them the runway on, these are the areas you need to start paying attention to?
Yeah, and on our proposal, somewhere in there it talks about continued coaching and mentoring.
Yeah.
And that's something we offer at no cost, because I want to see more people succeed in the field, because we're kind of desperate. So I would connect, whoever your new manager is, I would connect either to Juan and Bridgman, or Rick and Niles, or on and on. I think Darwin's in New Buffalo, and John Hodgson in St. Joe, and connect that person to all of them, and try to set up a mentoring situation for one of them.
Okay. Thank you.
People don't understand what the wages are out there. An 8th grade graduate from high school can make $80,000 driving truck. It's that simple. And they're just as responsible as anybody else. And people just don't get it. That college degree doesn't make you smart. I worked with way more 8th grade intelligent people than I worked with masters ever. So I know exactly what you're saying there.
I wouldn't even put, here's the thing, everyone wants to spend an evening defining what you want. What you come out of that evening for is a complete waste of time. We want someone who's honest and ethical and knows finances and going to represent the city well, a master's degree and this kind of years of service. I say the heck with all of that. Let's keep it wide open, cast the net wide, not set a bunch of parameters and interview the top people based on the things we've talked about. I don't want to set a bunch of parameters and people look at it and say, well, I don't quite meet that. So, especially private sector people, if you set up a long list of critics, they're going to look and say, I don't qualify. They're not going to apply.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because as soon as you put a bachelor's out there, a lot of working men, my age, we made it through high school. We were lucky to get a high school diploma because we didn't want to deal with the day-to-day garbage of teachers and professors. You know, we wanted to go out there and meet the men that was actually writing the books. So that would be one of my highest priorities.
Yeah, one of the things I did see where your salary that the outgoing manager had was 94. I think you're gonna have to take a serious look at that, and that's probably not gonna be competitive in the world that's out there today. The market has changed a lot in the last 18 months. Again, I'm being really candid with you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I would stay for the rest of the evening, but I've got a long drive and it's getting foggy out there. And I also want you to be able to have a candid conversation without me in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, we heard all three. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Do we have to make a decision tonight? Is this the last bunch of candidates? Or?
That's the last candidates. I think it's important we make a decision tonight to meet our timelines.
Yeah, I would agree.
Since, do we have to have a motion to have discussion first?
We can have a discussion. I don't mind.
I'll start. So I had the opportunity to bring in the 3 different groups, with a little bit of Sean's help on the MML piece there to the table. So I had a little bit additional conversation with these groups before they met the final cut of the 3. All 3 highly qualified. So I think they meet the barrier to entry for the city. I think any of the three we pick is a solid choice for us. With that said, the most robust presentation was Baker Tilly. They're also the most expensive. The communication from Walsh, from the moment I got connected with him through a couple of reference checks who recommended him, has been phenomenal. He actually helped us with the communication with the interim that we're gonna put on, and he continued to follow up to see how conversations were going, so that was a nice insight into what he has in his presentation, communication, that follow through happens there. MML, there was a mixed bag of reviews, just to be honest, on MML. Some people thought they were very solid and should have been on the list. Others felt underwhelmed with the searches they got. So, for me, the top choice, and I think the presentation solidified it today to see it, was Walsh.
Any comments?
No, I mean, I think, well, Sean and I are the only two up here that sat through the last one, and I think they did a fairly decent job of bringing us some very qualified candidates. We made a decision on one that we, at the time, it was the right decision. I think we felt like it was going to work out, and I think Frank touched on a lot of key points tonight that to really think about how that individual is going to fit in, not only from a skills perspective, but their ability to connect holistically with the city, and that's not just individuals that show up to the meetings. It's being ever present in the community, so the community gets to know who they are and puts a face with the name, and can be confident that they can go and speak with that individual, and find that individual at any given time. And when we see people like that have a presence, they're easy to find, they're easy to locate. And so I think Frank's statement about always positioning ourselves to think about an individual who is always meeting specific criteria, that pool becomes very, very tiny. So I was very impressed with him. I think that we need in this moment of difficulty somebody who is very candid with us and what we can and can't do, and are we even moving in the right direction. That he obviously exudes leadership qualities that we want to see in our candidates, and I believe that he's going to find somebody of that nature. So
I just have a very tough time, and I'm gonna say it right now, thinking that we gotta spend more money than we're already spending, because we didn't get what we wanted when we were spending what we did, and I don't think money's gonna buy it. I disagree with that 100%.
Yeah, I think all three firms will probably tell us the same thing.
Well, I'm sure they're
I think
going
we
to.
all have to prepare for that conversation.
I was not impressed with Tilly's interview at all. He stammered and stuttered way too much. He wasn't prepared, he hadn't seen the city, he was doing it all through day of paperwork. He's twice as high as the other two. MML, I don't believe we've ever used. Frank Walsh, I'm not sure, I didn't really look at it that much. His affiliation with St. Joe makes me nervous. And I'm just gonna put it out there straightforward, makes me very nervous. But the gentleman from Sturgis, he was a pretty good city manager, but that was 20 years ago too. And we've been through quite a bit since then. So I'm not gonna lead the way on this. I will follow, but I'm not leading.
Well, I look at Mr. Walsh's presentation that he gave us, and it is the most, he gets us, he knows us, and it's evident by looking at the package that he put together. And I like the fact that he's, he's easy to talk to, he's straightforward, and and looking at all these recommendations that he has, and he's been successful doing what he does. So Frank Walsh would be my choice.
All right. Well, I think for disclosure purposes to everybody, the bids we received were about roughly, I'm going to round some numbers here, roughly 27,000 to use Baker Tilly, 17,000 for the MML, and 12,900 for Walsh. So he was our best offer in terms of pricing as well. So with that, I'll make the motion to approve the proposal for Walsh Municipal Service not to exceed $12,900 for the city manager recruitment.
I will second.
And before we do roll call, I'm just really quickly to add to this conversation. I think you need to prepare yourself, Dan, because I think that I think that he's right about what we're paying people. And I think that there's people that work here now that should probably be making more money. I'll just throw that out there too. The last 2 years have changed things dramatically, and what people are making compared to what they were making a year and a half ago is, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, it's a lot more. So it's the new reality, and we're gonna have to get used to it. Can we have roll call, please?
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski.
Yep.
Carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to reports by departments, committees, and boards, the Community Development Director, Rich Murphy.
Evening, Mayor, City Commissioner, members of the public, Rich Murphy, Community Development Director. Just a few items this evening, I'll be brief. I have updated you guys on our plan of attack for grants for 2023. We have an important April 1st deadline coming up. My team and along with our engineers and Marcy Hamilton from Southwest Michigan Planning Commission have prioritized two grants that we think will be most competitive to go after. They are a carve out of the St. Joseph River Public Access Plan, which is an ADA accessible kayak launch that would be down at Riverfront Park. We're developing the application and site plan right now. First things first, though, for us to proceed with an application, we need a resolution approved by the City Commission. And so that's what this step is. As we refine these applications, I'll be in touch with you with more details about each project. But we would need these, the first one is for the kayak launch for your consideration. And this would be through the development grant from the Michigan DNR, Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund. Remind you, we've had a strong plan of attack on grants in the last 2 years. We're continuing to have our foot on the gas pedal. We've been very successful in reeling in grant money, so we just want to keep the momentum up. So.
Great. Somebody like to make a motion?
Sean, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023.02/06 to support the MNRTF grant application for the kayak launch project.
Thank you. Thank you. Have roll call, please.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski. Carries.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Second is for a resolution for a DNR passport grant. We have identified playground equipment at Victory Park as the most competitive project. One of the reasons is the city's going out to bid on the pavilion, and it really shows skin in the game, I think, and the overall impact would be kind of a double barrel of the pavilion being constructed and the playground equipment. That means we all agree a more competitive application, so we will be moving forward. That grant's in the amount of $175,000, and we are working with our engineers and some really cool playground vendors that Ashley Regal has hooked us up with. And again, we're keeping the neighbors from the north side involved in the project, make sure that they know the process and the timeline and what we're going after. So,
How much is playground equipment?
playground equipment is really expensive.
No, I want a
Yeah.
number, please.
Well, it depends on what you get, but it's astronomical, all
It's
of it.
80
We're going for $175,000, and so we're using that number to for our grant application, because that's the maximum. And our vendors think that we can work with that number, but lower than that, it starts to get pretty difficult.
I'm just curious, when you do this grant and it's for a certain amount of money, are you gonna have to be pretty concise on what kind of equipment you're gonna put in the playground, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, we've already had meetings with the vendors, and they've identified, based on our discussions with the neighborhood and what we think is appropriate for Buchanan, they've identified a portfolio and a site plan of equipment. So yeah, we'll be pretty specific on it.
So to Dan's point though, like, can you tell us just kind of generally, like, what would be there? Like a slide, swings, merry-go-round?
Yeah, I don't know, do you wanna speak to that, or you
Yep.
a little a little bit more detail on it. Ashley has been, but she can talk about the concept.
Yeah, I have it all laid out in a document if you guys would like to see that later, but this was just our initial request to them so they could think about it and put together a site plan for us to bring back to the Northside neighbors to confirm that's what they're interested in. We're looking at the treetop package. It has some accessible options so that children of all abilities can enjoy it. So yes, swings, slides, the standard platforms, things to spin on. And it tries to address having 3 different things, so accessibility, an area for younger kids that they can enjoy it, and then I can't remember, it's like graduated risk, so then areas for older kids to enjoy it too. So that's what we've been looking at. It's the same equipment company that is being used at Howard Park, which a lot of our community loves that, but it's a much more affordable version. And then the same company has playgrounds all around the area, with the oldest one they referenced being about 35 years old in Berrien Springs. So that was a huge thing for myself and the community that we've talked to, that neighborhood, was we don't want to be going in there fixing it up all the time. We need it to be solid from the start, but they also have a really good maintenance program where they can help us out. But they told us all the ways that it's better than others and how they make sure it's welded better and all the different coatings and whatever, so that it's maintained well, and that's my top priority. So.
And I'm just a wild guess, it's probably difficult to give an exact amount because it kind of just depends on to what level you choose from the equipment, right? So
Yeah.
they can show you everything from $5,000 up to $250,000. It just all depends on what type of
Yeah.
money you're wanting to put in. I guess
And you can look
to
at
that
it-
point, that it's a range. Like it all is it's all
Yeah.
directly related to what you choose.
So the way I found this set was by looking at their site. They have a portfolio, and you guys, I can send that, it will be in the document I can send to you. But they show the projects they've done in the past and the price range that those projects cost, so you can get a pretty good reference number for that. But each item is individually priced, so for example, the one that I chose had a bear that you ride on, but we don't want a bear here, we want a buck. So
Yep, exactly.
it'll be different, but it's similar in price. You can get a really good idea.
I think I can remember back to Marcy telling the Barb at one point that when you get that ADA equipment built into that helps your chance at getting grants, right? I mean, that's part of what we're doing, is checking all the boxes to make sure we get a high score.
Yeah, this company's based in Minnesota, so they have track record with Midwestern winners, and we went and visited installations they had, and we took a field trip, and this company really, I think, has some of the more compelling playgrounds in the region. So
Cool.
landscape structures, they've been really good to work with, and our engineers at Avon Marsh have assisted us with site plan work. So they guided us to the passport grant. It's a typical grant that you go for because it's about in the sweet spot of how much an impactful playground installation would cost.
So I'll move to approve, if everybody's good, I guess. I'll move to approve resolution 2023-02/7 to support recreation passport grant application for Victory Park.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
I don't like the way this is, you're bypassing a lot of steps, but this should be presented to Barb. Barb has not been included in this at all from the very beginning. From the purchase of that property onward, Barb is supposed to recommend this to us. I know it's a step, but it's a step that needs to be taken, because Barb has to be included in this, because this is Barb funding that's gonna come out of this. For any funding that comes out to do any of these projects is gonna be taken out of their funding. And I hope the rest of the commissioners agree with me on this, that this has got to be presented. This is not about the Northside Committee, because that's not a recognized committee. The Barb is a committee. So whatever Barb decides, that's what we're gonna do, and that's what we're gonna do going forward, because that's where the money's coming from. And if the North Side wants to participate, they can come down here, or they can go to the Barb meetings.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before, I was at the Barb meeting 2 meetings ago, and I updated the Barb on our grant strategy for April 1st.
You're missing my whole point, Rich. Barb is supposed to recommend this. And when the property was bought, Barb was not included in this.
Well, we can include Barb. If I don't have a resolution from the commission, I have no reason to put 40 hours of myself and a staff member to put forward a grant application. That's why I need the resolution, you know.
He, how do I need to say this?
I,
We approve what Barb recommends to us.
But if I
The
re-
I think you're-
presentation is made to Barb.
I think you're looking at it as a chicken and egg syndrome
No,
a
I'm
little
not.
bit though.
So
Like,
you're
he
looking at-
wants to go to Barb with something that
Is concrete.
is something that they can start putting tangible time into. Otherwise, Barb could work on something that's $500,000 worth of work, but the commission's gonna shoot it down. So like, he's giving the foreshadow, so Barb's time can be used more constructively. I think he's including Barb, they were part of the
This
five-year rec
is,
plan.
this is actually the first step.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you had brought this
I-
up
I
at 2
agree.
meetings ago, right, that was part of the reason you were at that.
Yeah, I
Barb
mean,
meeting.
I've tried to, you know, when I was at Barbara's meeting, I told them all the updates that I shared tonight with you. I mean, we gotta go after our most competitive, grant application, because it's very labor intensive. Takes time and effort, and we wanna be successful. This is our best, these are our 2 best applications.
But I do wholeheartedly agree with you on using our boards more effectively, right? Strictly.
That's what
Maybe
got
we just have a little
volunteers
bit of difference of some of that timing piece, but I do
for. Well,
agree
it's
with
down
that.
to a deadline now, so we have no
Yeah.
choice but to vote on it. That's
Yep.
my whole point.
Yep.
Somebody
It's
make
not been presented to
It's
Barb.
got a motion in a second.
No, there was a second.
Whedon second.
Roll call?
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yep.
Swam,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you. We have annual permit renewals for Redbud Roots. Tonight's agenda, we have 4 adult use renewal applications at 215 Post Road, 835 Terra Coupe, 835 Terra Coupe, and 215 Post Road. And we have 1 medical renewal application for Redbud Roots at 215 Post Road. I have received all the applications and payments, and I have forwarded the background checks to the Buchanan Police Department, and they have been approved by the Buchanan Police Department. At this point, my recommendation is that the applications are all in order, and I recommend approval.
Thank you. Someone like to make a motion?
Sean will make a motion to approve Redbud Roots 2023 marijuana permit renewals as presented.
Thank you. Is there support?
Yep.
Yes?
Roll call,
Yes.
please.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
carries.
Okay, last item, we did have our walkthrough for the demolition of 111 Railroad and Baroda Tire. Shay Muller from Point Blue and his team were out there. Dan Bianski was out there, and so was Larry Money, Mike Baker, and we had some members of the public there, including Mario, who's here tonight. We had a demolition contractor, Earl, from his demolition company, and Annie Tuitt from Flatwater Farms was out there as well. So we did walk through the property. There were really a couple different reasons why we're there. One is Shay Muller and his engineering team needed to get the specifications for demolition so that he can write it in the bid and go out to bid. And secondly, we were trying to look at reuse options of the silos. And so we did have that discussion with Mario and with Annie Tuitt. There's, why I'm bringing this up tonight is I kind of need a path forward, permission, if you will, from the commission, which way to go here. There's one item is that there are some semi-bed or trailers out there that are, I believe, quote unquote, abandoned or just have been there a long time. And I know there's some interest from Mario to take them off our hands, if you will. So that would be one thing that I would ask permission if you thought it was a good idea that we go down that road. You know, that's one thing we talked about. Secondly, on the silos themselves, there's 2 tall silos where Mario, I think, wants to see if he can reuse the dome in the first ring And Annie Tewitt from Flatwater Farms is interested in one of the other silos. And so there's different ways we could go about this. I think first and foremost, the engineers and I am concerned that anybody that's working there would need to be reputable demolition contractors with insurance requirements. That would all, of course, be spelled out in the demolition. But there's different ways you can go about it. We discussed it. I'm bringing all this to you because you asked me to kind of do the due diligence and bring it forward, so now I am doing that. And I'm kind of asking you which way we go now. One thing we could do, we could allow Mario to take the, or anyone else that has a proposal, to take the semi-trailers. It's probably a less risky operation. That would get us those things off our property. And, you know, they looked pretty bad. I think you saw the photos. We could allow Mario and or Flatwater Farms to engage a reputable, experienced contractor on the front end to take down and quote unquote take down or cherry pick pieces before the subsequent demolition. That would require the contractor to, you know, meet all the specifications of having insurance, et cetera. Or I think door number 3 would be, we could just say, let's go out to bid. Whoever wins the bid, Mario and or Flatwater Farms could engage with them to see if they could take the property off their hands. Because a lot of these demolition guys, they know that the certain pieces are worth money, and they may be a little bit more careful in taking things down. I've learned throughout these discussions. And so I'm just looking for direction of where you want me to go.
I was out there and I've talked to him substantially. The best way to go, we hire a contractor. And then whoever wants something, and Flatwater Farms doesn't want to pay nothing. Basically, that's the bottom line. The city doesn't have the money to give anything to anybody. And dealing with separate contractors, you're looking at a headache.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and then you don't know what they're gonna take. The whole sense of salvaging something is to get all the copper, get everything. They can work out, they're gonna know who's tearing it down, we can make sure we contact, we can put it on Facebook. We're gonna start we can put it out there a week before, Rich, let them contact them, let them work out their own deal. The trailers, me personally, Mario asked for them, he would haul them off under his own liability. If they can't pick them up, they're not gonna haul them off, obviously. But what they are is they're 2 trailers with the axles taken out from under them. And they were used for storing straw, and that's basically what they want them. So it's 2 40-footers that would be gone, and we wouldn't have to deal with. You know, it's the ones that sit on that, road that is that Oak, I think?
Probably upstairs up to them, that's what I see a lot of.
No, they're flat on the ground.
Oh, flat on the ground, okay.
They're flat on the ground. So them 2 40-footers, you know, we'd have to give Mario actual permission. We'd probably have to have him sign a waiver to haul them off. Cause I mean, he's not gonna haul them down the road. I mean, picking them up, a record truck is gonna be, they're gonna fulfill all liability clauses, because that's what they're gonna have to have. They're gonna have to have a flatbed and a wrecker to pick them up, pull them up on a rollover, and get them on a trailer, and then chain them down. And that's how that'll work. And I know that from firsthand experience, Rich. So it's not nearly as complicated as we can possibly make it. But I would really, really move for one contractor and let them deal with Flatwater Farms and then whatever Mario wants besides the 2 trailers.
I agree with that. I mean, I would just say that one contractor, they're going out to RFP to get the site development right. That means everything on the site,
Right.
including those trailers. The contractor that's what we're paying the contractor to do. They handle negotiations. They know we wanna try to have some salvage communication happening as part of the RFP process. Exactly. We just let the GC do what the GC does.
Have you reached out to AEP yet?
Yeah.
What did they say? Were
They
they
want to do a walkthrough with the engineers. You know, we were out there, and it's a significant project for the demolition. You know, we're removing silos along a railroad. There's power and transformers that are still connected. There's foundations. There's, you know, other stuff, including the semi-trailers and propane
Yeah.
bed or area. So, I mean, which leads me to my next kind of point is, when we get the bid back, I don't know where it's gonna come in, but it's gonna be significant. So I just want you to know that we are on a parallel track on being proactive, and we are having discussions about going for round 2 of blight remediation, which we would be eligible for up to 200,000, if the county land bank applies on our behalf for this money. And so, originally, we were in discussions to apply round 1, but county had 2 other priorities. So now, they kind of said, we'll entertain into round 2. So I talked to the county development director last week, and we're gonna apply for round 2 of funding. I just don't know when my bids will come in, and so there's just a little bit of, but either way, we're gonna put an application in.
Right.
So we're thinking about the cost, because, the cost could come in close to that, or,
But I would agree, I think it makes sense to use one contractor to handle the entire project. We don't have the resources or the time to be doing 3 different things out there. And, as far as I'm concerned with the trailers, I don't really care if he takes the trailers. I think someone should be there while he's there, just from the city, just in case someone pulls up, starts screaming at him. Someone from the city will be there to make
Yeah.
sure that he's taking what he's supposed to.
Can I volunteer as a commissioner to do that, since I have some background in that anyhow?
My
Am I
concern
qualified
is-
to do that?
My concern with that is, someone's gonna say, well, they took that for scrap value and it wasn't part of a process, and someone comes down here and screaming that we gave something away.
Let them scream.
We're gonna have people.
There's no
screaming.
dollar amount, there's no dollar amount,
We're tearing everything down.
there's no dollar amount.
Yeah, we're already planning to get the bid to get it removed. I'd just be curious before we gave it away.
But I think as long as we're, communicative with whatever general contractor we use, and let them know that there are people who are wanting certain
Yeah.
things. I'm sure it happens all the time, I'm sure they're used to it,
And
but I
he-
still think it makes
No,
sense.
I love the idea, the creative, reuse idea. I've enjoyed working with Mario and Flatwater Farms on the concept. So, to the extent that we can offer that with whoever wins the bid, work with that contractor, and they know how to do things like that. So they need to remove that material. Maybe they'll be more careful with certain pieces that are more valuable, but that's not our problem.
Right.
Well, I'll make the first chip, and I'll volunteer to be down there when Mario comes get the trailers, but I'll move that Mario can come get them 2 40-foot trailers off that property. And he has to notify the city and notify me, he has my phone number, and I'll represent the city. That's my motion.
There's support. This was just for the trailers?
Just for the trailers.
I would support it.
Ready?
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanna wait till we get the GC bids back and we can discuss removal of trailers at that point, is all I would ask. That way the public has a chance, if somebody else wants it, when they at least have a chance for it. I want them gone too, so.
So then, since you brought that point up, since you want them gone, who's gonna actually come? They've been sitting out there for 20 years.
Well, we've never made
You
it
have-
available.
it doesn't
so we're
matter.
just
They've been
making
sitting-
an emotion to
You
give
gotta
to
deal with
somebody.
the moment. You gotta deal with the moment. You have somebody ready, willing, and able to haul the damn things off. So just
Disagree with the process.
okay. It's just for 2 trailers.
Which really aren't trailers at this point. I mean.
No, they're flat
I
boxes.
think
They're metal boxes.
I don't know. I can't believe they're gonna be that desirable by that many different people. If somebody's interested in them, I think it's one less thing we have to worry about, in my opinion, but. Whatever, we have a motion, we have a second. We have a roll call.
Bianski,
Yes.
Schwab,
No.
Dennison,
Yeah.
Whedon,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you.
And so we'll just proceed on the bidding, get the lowest bid possible, no alternates of reuse, and then suggest that the interested parties work directly with the contractor. Are we clear on that?
Do you want us to make, I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
effect.
Yes, please.
I mean, I don't want you to go, I will move that we go with one contractor. Does this need an RFP?
Yeah,
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 so
we-
I move that we put together an RFP for the destruction of, what's the property address? 111 Railroad and Baroda Tire 2. Is that sufficient?
Yeah,
Is there
RFP
support?
for just one contractor.
I support.
Swam supports.
Yep.
Yeah, one general.
can we just
we
add
had a
in
general
with the
contract.
lowest,
You got it.
to seek the lowest bids with no alternates for reuse?
Right.
You know, just because that's what we were talking about originally, we're like, should we carve out an alternate for reuse, but that just spelled more money for the city, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Bianski,
Yes.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
carries.
That's all I had, thank you guys.
Oh, before you go, Ross Sanders, have you worked on that survey?
Yes, so, we have the title work and survey ordered right now,
Okay,
but we have to do it for all the 6 parcels.
right,
We have to clear title, and
Right.
make sure there's no encumbrances or liens, and then we have to have a discussion about what the new property line of Ross Sanders will be.
okay,
So I have a couple conversation starters that I have done just to get lines on paper.
okay,
We've talked to the fire chief, you know, I've been in touch with, the preservationist, so I'm really trying to keep everybody updated, but right now, we can't do anything, Matt Derby agrees, we can't do anything until we, have the title work. But on a parallel track, we already have the RFP,
Right.
it's drafted.
do you have any form of time frame at all, Rich?
They said title work would be a few weeks.
Okay, and then I have one other question
Yeah.
for you, and I know this was not nothing to do with you, but
Yeah.
it's, I asked you about the zoning grant.
Right.
Do you have any update on that?
Yeah, after we talked, I emailed Julia Turnbull, who's the MEDC contact for redevelopment ready communities, and I advised her that I believe former manager Heather Grace submitted paperwork inquiring for the grant, and I'm asking her what the status of that is, because I think Heather at a meeting shared that she did submit that paperwork to MEDC, I remember. So I'm trying to figure out where that is. When they get back to me, I'll let you know.
Call her up, maybe she can tell you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, Main Street Manager, Assistant Community Development Director.
Good evening. I just have a simple thing to put to you guys tonight. We had, last year, we put together a fee schedule and a food truck ordinance, and we got some feedback from the community since then, so I'm here to ask that we revise it to match a little bit more what the community would, from what I've heard, would like to see. The ordinance, we don't have any questions about, it's just the fee schedule, and it makes us a little bit more competitive. For reference, Niles charges $20 a year for their food trucks, so I'm suggesting that we charge $30 a year, or we have a $5 one-day use, which is consistent with what we do for our farmers market booths. They also charge $5 a day, and that our brick and mortar restaurants, and I think also businesses that maybe, like for example, the Hendricksons have Combi Keg, and I think they would also qualify because they pay taxes on their brick and mortar business here, would not have to pay a fee. It simplifies the process, it makes it more likely for these businesses to actually pay us rather than just showing up, and yeah, everything else basically stays the same. I'm just asking that we reduce the price and make it a little bit more food truck friendly.
What was the fee that we paid, or we agreed to last year?
Last year it was $15 for, I
Per
can't remember
day.
if it was private or public. It was
It was,
25 for the
yeah.
other, and then they accrued that to be like if you do the math, I think it was $15.25 for 6 months and 2,000 something for 6 months. And that decision was made, I believe, because it was justified on the cost of what our brick and mortar businesses are paying in taxes.
Right, yeah.
But that, maybe is not a true equivalency for what a food truck, should be paying, so.
So 50 and 250 would be outrageous. 50 a day and 250 a year?
I don't think we would get food trucks to come for that, so.
Really?
I believe so. For our big events, I think we can charge a little bit more. We, at this point, wouldn't be competitive with others in our area at that price. So why would, if Niles is charging $20 a year, and they have 11,000 people in their community, I think it's a little unlikely that we
So
would-
why don't we structure them to push them into a yearly fee,
Well, we have, it's $20 for a year here. That's
Okay.
what I'm or $30 for a year here is what I'm suggesting.
So,
Right.
and I'm the one that does the permits. They have to, so Ashley and I have worked together with that. But they come in and they pay, and I can tell you there is only one food truck that pays, because we don't have enforcement to be able to do that. So we have multiple food trucks. I know you guys have seen them around, but literally only one that has come in and paid me.
So there's two problems I would like to add to what Cal is saying. One is enforcement for sure. So having a rule that you're not going to enforce just weakens you, in my opinion. But then trying to enforce it is tax dollars. Having our cops go in and enforce that's not maybe the way we want to spend our time and resources with our police officers. I'm sure that they could speak to that.
He's got a gun too.
A little better. But the other side of that is, because of the nature of my job, I have been able to speak one-on-one with a lot of these vendors, and I would say many former vendors. And there's a message we sent to them that was that you're not welcome here with that, with what we did last year. And it's hard to get people back once you do that, but we've been working really hard to cultivate those relationships again. And part of that's been listening to what they think is fair. And so that's why I'm here presenting this, to try to hopefully repair some of those relationships and get some of those startup businesses to stay here in Buchanan and grow here in Buchanan.
What did we specifically do to alienate them?
That price structure
Okay,
wasn't reasonable for what they're bringing in,
okay, okay.
and the messaging around it was also pretty unkind at the time.
I'll make the motion number 2023-2.08 for the mobile food vending fee schedule.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Have roll call, please?
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So you need a
You
second?
Oh, you
have a
need a second
second?
one. You just, from your updated application.
Oh, yeah, the changes for the application are very few. It just simplified it. It's just that they're sending it to CALA. They're required to go get their own. It's basically the same. We just worded it a little bit clearer to make sure that they are responsible for getting their own clearance with the county for all the health department and insurance. I did put on there to list the city of Buchanan on their insurance, but again, we would have to go in and pull out their insurance to enforce that, but hopefully if there was an issue, we covered ourselves.
So if somebody's parked on our property, can we take them an application and allow them, or are we gonna have to tell them to pull up stakes?
There's no enforcement for it right now.
Well, I know, but I mean, how are we gonna, all you gotta do, how do we know that they don't have a license?
So I actually write out a permit when they give me the application, and you'll see it, it's very clear. We had 5 different ones this last time, so it was color coded.
Okay,
So when they came in, if they did a 1-day pass, a 6-month pass, but like I said, it was only one company, and he was just,
so anybody that's out and about that
Yeah.
doesn't see the,
no, and you'll see, it's bright colored.
Right,
it
that's what
says-
I mean. If you
yeah,
don't
and it's
see
got
one,
the
call
permit.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
supposed to be, we have neon. They're
Neon.
supposed to put it right in the front of their window, but again, and then Cali gets pulled off it's just a challenge. We wanna make it as easy as possible for
Okay,
people to be successful.
We were going back and forth quite a bit between me and Ashley, because if it was for an event, it was going to Ashley. If it was just daily, it was going to me, so we really pulled together and said, this has gotta change, we can't do this is wasting our time, so.
And for the record, I know you didn't ask this, but we did put in here that if even our brick and mortar restaurants want a guaranteed spot, so let's say they show up at a concert or whatever, they still need to tell us they're gonna be there if they want us to reserve it. That has been made clear to those of us who have spoken to them, that has been communicated, so should.
Do they have to furnish their own electricity, the brick and mortar, or can they do something in front of their store, or how does that work?
We ask everybody to be self-sufficient and
Okay.
to not plug into city outlets without prior permission. Again, somebody has to go in and enforce that if they see it, but we ask them all to be self-sufficient.
So do you need a motion to do this?
Just that.
I need a motion to approve the updated vending fee, or?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the updated mobile food vending application as presented.
Is there support?
I'll support.
May I have roll call, please?
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yep.
carries.
Thank you, Ashley. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, the investment policy. Consider approving the updated investment policy with the amendments made by the finance committee.
So, nothing changed. We validated that it's in compliance with the state standard. We didn't make it any more complex than the state minimum standard, so it allowed us flexibility to make future decisions.
Good.
That's all that's there.
Want to make a motion?
I don't think we have to, I think we can just,
Move
we
to
can
continue
continue
with
with
the-
Yeah,
what
just
we have,
continue the use
so
as long as you
we
guys
just-
have that
we-
record.
As part of, our first meeting, we wanted to review it and make sure we were
And it looks like,
in
then
compliance.
we looked it up, and originally it was changed at the state level in 97, ours is 98. So ours matches what the state minimum requirements are for investments.
So we're okay with what we have?
We're okay with what we have, we
Yep.
don't need to make any changes to the policy.
Perfect. All right.
So we don't need to approve it
No.
through a motion?
It's already,
Because there was no changes.
So number 2 is to consider a resolution of authorized signatures for the investment account, naming city treasurer Deborah Perez as authorized signer.
Sean, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023.02/09, authorizing city treasurer Deb Perez as authorized signature for the investment policy.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
May I have roll call, please?
Dennison,
Yes.
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Swam,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you. Moving down to new business, consider the employment agreement for interim city manager with Timothy Lynch.
I just really had one question.
Yeah.
Are we gonna max that out at 40 hours?
So the way the agreement reads is if he was going to work more than 40 hours, he would have to seek permission from Sean or Mark. He had expressed during the application process, and we discussed that day, that he was gonna work definitely more than part-time, but full-time, you know, he just retired from.
And what was
St.
the actual hourly rate that we?
So the contract, the hourly rate is what we discussed in the meeting. It would, on 2,080 hours, it would equal $89,000 a year if you work 40 hours a week all the time at an hourly rate. So it's like 43.79, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So the agreement reads, he works a minimum of 32 hours, not to exceed 40, so he wouldn't go into the overtime factors. And if he had something that was going to be time pressing and needed to work into that schedule, one of these two could decide.
Only thing is, going into overtime, when you're talking overtime, is it actually time and a half, or is it straight time? Is it the $43 an hour?
He's an hourly employee, so I would imagine that's time and a half.
It would have to be time and a half by law.
Yeah, I think that's just a legal standard on that.
That's why he asked for hourly.
Well, that was a recommendation from the attorneys
I
as
know.
well. So that's why it's read that way.
Think very hard before you give him
And
any
when
overtime.
will he be started?
Wednesday.
Yeah, the first.
Yeah, you've been gone.
I've been gone. I'll take a
We're
motion.
glad to have you back.
So I'll move to improve the employment agreement of interim city manager Timothy Lynch.
Thank you. Is there support?
I'll support.
May I have roll call, please?
Whedon,
Yes.
Bianski,
Yes.
Swam,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
carries.
Thank you. Moving on to communications.
Oh, just two things. The absentee voting application / new form, if you're on the permanent list, for the city of Buchanan, they went out on Thursday, so be expecting those. I do need both forms filled out and turned back in. There's also a public hearing set for next regular meeting for the proposal of, the set hearing is to hear public comments on the possible sale of city real property located at 107, which Ross Sanders' house. So please, if you have any comments, questions, bring them forth to the public hearing. And that is all I have.
Okay. All right, I'll open it up for public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to make a public comment? Going once, going twice? Okay, seeing none, moving on to executive comments. Cal, do you have anything else?
No.
Rich, do you have anything else? All right. Mr. Viancy?
When does absentee voting start for the, is it May 2nd or May 7th?
For absentee,
No, when is the
actual election,
the 2nd?
the second, May 2nd, yeah.
So when does this start? Can they start bringing absentee ballots in now? Well, there's not
So
even a
I
ballot.
don't have the ballots yet.
Okay.
Right now, I think they're just doing the proofing. I just got a message from the county today about programming. But as of right now, I have not seen any kind of proofing, which is unusual. So, we just kind of, I'm sure it will be fine. There's a lot going on with all the changes from Prop 2. Everybody's just kind of catch up. But I was able to get the applications printed off before the system failed on us all, so that was one good thing. And I was able to get mine out, like I said, this Thursday, and I included the sheet to sign up for a permanent. So if you don't know, with Prop 2, now with that passing, it's not a permanent application list anymore, it's a permanent ballot list. So if you sign up for this, you are going to get a ballot for every election. No application, nothing like that. If you don't feel comfortable with doing that, I am going to keep a separate list for the time being of an application list where I will send you an application, just so you know. But it's gonna be a little bit difficult because our system is not capable. So they're working on it as fast as possible. But hopefully no more elections in 2023, just waiting for the big one in 24.
I really don't have any other comments, just hope we work it out with our city managers.
Mr. Spahn?
Yeah, I just want to thank the team and the commission. I think we acted as swiftly as we possibly could on establishing an interim and making a decision on moving forward tonight with the search group. So continue to act. Good. That's all I have.
I just wanted to speak to the school bond. They had a meeting last week, and for anybody who's not aware, they did make substantial changes to the asks that they're going for. They did remove things such as the turf field is not gonna be on as part of the $34 million. They have on the list to repair the track. They are still looking to move forward with the building of the addition to Moccasin on the north side instead of the south side. Some changes in the parking lot layout and how they have the kids picked up. In addition to that, they have some extensive upgrades inside of the high school. With the science wing, upgrading 4 rooms, making 1 lab instead of multiple rooms with labs. A wellness area for the students to come into, so it was all consolidated, expansion of the cafeteria, and upgrade and replacement of the floor in the auxiliary gym. Harvey, I think I covered the major HVAC upgrades in all of the buildings. Ottawa and middle school are not, they are pretty.
Is there a gym in the Moccasin?
Oh, that was another one too. Moccasin has an elementary style gym that's going to be put on the northeast side when they do, if it's set approved. So for anyone who was not aware of their changes and the updates that they had to try to get the community buy-in, I think they've made some substantial cuts.
But the price is the same?
They didn't make any cuts. The bond's the same size.
Right, that, I just hadn't got to that, yeah.
Oh.
So 34 million, but I don't know exactly how that shifted. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention, so when that's on the ballot, that everybody's aware of it, that it is brought out, and people are understanding of what is being asked of the community.
That's gonna
So.
be released on March the 9th, because I tried to get all that. She's not
Okay.
gonna release any of that until March the 9th.
So,
That it?
that's it.
All right. I just wanted to thank Mark and Patrick and Dan for keeping things moving while I was gone. And I wanted to thank Rich and Callie for not bothering me while I was gone. It was kind of nice, I have to say, actually. And that's all I got. So I take a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll support.
Roll call, please.
Bianski,
Yep.
Swam,
Yes.
Tennyson,
Yes.
Eden.
Yes.
Mayor adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Busy guy over there. Oh, no.
We were supposed to sign it, right?
They said to approve consent agenda.
I signed it too.
Hi.
What's it better?
What's your name?